Hello and welcome back to another episode of App Stories. I'm John Voorhees, and I've got Federico Viticci with me. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Good. It's been a big week over at Mac Stories. We've had a lot of popular stories this week, including the most popular of all, which is your interview with Craig Federighi, which was really, as I think you guys mentioned on Connected, was really two stories in one, because it was really a story about your thoughts on iPadOS 26 and the journey of the iPad, and weaved into there was the interview with Craig Federighi that you did at WWDC.
Yeah, that was sort of the idea for that story. I figured, well, obviously, this is not a first impressions story, right? Because that will come with the public beta in July of the new operating systems.
Right.
But I also could share some thoughts. And I did have the beta on my iPad Pro. So I figured, what's a good way to frame this in a way that it's not just, I couldn't do an interview transcript. That was not the format for the story. And I figured, well, there's a type of conversation that I want to have with Craig Federighi. I've only had limited time with iPadOS 26. I am going to save my first impressions for July and a proper review for September. What can I talk about and really go in depth? And I figured, well, I've been covering this thing for really the majority of my career. And I figured maybe the historical aspect of it is a good angle. And it seems like people appreciated the sort of the, I don't know if you noticed, but and this is something that I do all the time, that I've been doing since high school. I really like to have my narrative arcs in my stories. And so many, this is like just my style, I guess. I really like to always start a story with an idea and circle back to that idea in the end. This is something that I picked up, I think, from the ancient Rome, from the Latin classics, like Cicero, like Seneca, like that sort of stuff. Like you do have a narrative arc. You start with one idea, you end with the same idea, but you also you gotta leave something impactful for the end, because that's what people are gonna remember at the end. And so I figured I'm gonna have these separate arcs in the story, and those sort of topics will be combined with quotes from Craig Federighi. That was also how I structured my interview questions for Federighi. So that was sort of the idea, and it was fun to go back to really old Mac Stories articles, dig up what split view used to look like in iOS 9, which at first I did not remember that split view didn't used to be drag and drop only. There used to be a special app picker on the right side. And then when I saw the screenshots, this is one of the benefits of Mac Stories, I guess. It's a treasure trove of old screenshots at this point. And when I saw the screenshots, it all came back to me. I was like, oh yeah, that app picker that it was sort of showing you recent apps, but not the same recent apps as the main app switcher.
Yeah, it was so weird, wasn't it? And I saw that screenshot.
Now it all, and Mike mentioned that to me, and then it all came rushing back.
Yeah.
It was recent apps, but recent apps in split view. So it was, and it was weird because nobody really understood how it worked at the time. And so you really had two app switchers. The main one, the grid when you swipe up, or at the time when you used to double click the home button, that used to be a thing. And that was one set of recent apps. And then it was the second set of recent apps, which was the app picker in split view. Also, slide over used to be just one app at a time. They did multiple apps in slide over with iPadOS 13. And of course, before that, it was iOS 11 with the drag and drop activation gesture for split view that caused a lot of concern, because there was parents and grandparents accidentally getting into multitasking. That was
right.
And so I figured, this is what I've been doing for all these years. Might as well just talk about this stuff with a man who's been in charge of shipping these things. And so that was fun.
I love seeing the apps that were in your switcher too. Terminology was in there, and it was a very old icon for terminology. I don't know. I love seeing those old screenshots, and there is a treasure trove of those on Mac Stories. Well, Federico, I want to embarrass you a little bit, because I want to tell you that this is one of the very best stories you've written ever, really. I mean, I enjoyed it so much. I was sitting at the airport in San Francisco, and I saw a very rough draft very early, and it just kind of gave me chills, because I know your story so well. compared to most people, I suppose, that it just had a real big impact on me. And I do think, like, if you're somebody who wants to write about technology or whatever it is, there's a way to do it clinically, but there's also a way to do it that actually tells a story that captures people's imaginations and emotions and things. And I think you did a fantastic job at that. I mean, I think that that's what really sets your writing apart from other people. I mean, I've learned an awful lot from you myself, and I always appreciate writing those stories.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am slightly embarrassed by that because I don't really love compliments. I am partial to two stories that I've done over the years. One is just the emotional connection that I have with my first iPad Pro review. Just the whole story of going to London, meeting Mike and Gray for the first time, coming back with the iPad Pro in secret for like a week. That was a whole thing. And for me, it was my first big break, really. And the other story that I did a few years ago, and it's a personal story. It's about music. It's called I Made You a Mixtape.
One of my favorites too.
Thank you. I'm always gonna be partial to that story because it means a lot to me. But yeah, this was another of those. It's just last week I'll remember forever. Just being with you, rehearsing with you before, preparing for the interview, talking to people. It was good. It was good. And
it was really good.
But now enough about that. Enough about that. We're gonna move on.
Enough about Federico Viticci. Let's talk about the iPad.
Yeah. So all right. So I am in a bit of a pickle, so to speak.
Yes, you are. After having completely torn down and rebuilt your system for probably the 1,000th time in the last 5 years.
Oh God. Okay.
Where are you right now with this stuff?
So. Obviously, I'm going to go back to the iPad.
Sure.
Here's what I'm thinking. I will, for the foreseeable future, I will be split between the iPad and the Mac Studio. I think the computer that gets the short end of the stick here is going to be the MacBook Pro. Because I have a laptop again. That's my iPad Pro. But for like really advanced AI stuff, or like really powerful Mac stuff, I have my Mac Studio on loan from Apple for a few months. I still need to produce more content. I want to produce. It's not like I need, not because Apple is telling me, because I want to. I need to try a lot of things, especially with local AI, local models, like sort of stuff. So, and obviously, like my desk right here is not going away. This microphone is not going away. That audio interface is not going away. This monitor right here is not going away. So here's what I'm thinking. I want to be able to get to a place where these accessories, microphone, audio interface, monitor, and CalDigit TS4 dock can be used independently with either my iPad Pro or the Mac Studio.
Right.
But my problem is that I do not want to unplug the Thunderbolt cable from the Mac Studio every time I want to use the iPad Pro instead.
Yeah.
And so you know what this means.
I totally get that. I'm the same way. I've wanted to
also
connect
because
it's just hard.
I gotta sort of like crouch under the desk and reach behind the Mac Studio. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I have been forbidden from placing the Mac Studio on my desk from my lovely girlfriend Sylvia. Rightfully so, because it's a bit of a sight. Now, you know what this means? It means it's KVM time, baby.
Finally.
Once again. Okay, so my plan, my working theory, which by the time this episode is out, I will either have a solution and I'm gonna be happy, or I'm gonna be very sad. Right now, it's like Schrodinger's Thunderbolt at the moment. In the sense that the plan should be, there is, to the best of our knowledge, one, or maybe two, but I think one really, officially certified Thunderbolt 4, not 5, but Thunderbolt 4 KVM switch. Now, a KVM switch is literally a switch with a button that allows you to switch the same Thunderbolt setup between two computers. Now, my two computers are going to be the Mac Studio and the iPad Pro. My working theory is that I will have the iPad Pro and the Mac Studio, one Thunderbolt cable going into each. So one cable into the iPad Pro, one cable into the Mac Studio. Now, both cables obviously 2 cables cannot go into the CalDigit dock. So the 2
Right.
cables instead will go into this, what's it called? The Sabrent Thunderbolt 4 KVM switch.
Yes, a switch that I've looked at before myself
Yes.
many months ago and talked to you about.
Yes. Supposedly, it is the only one like proper Thunderbolt 4 KVM switch. It's a little rectangular. It looks like a hub, basically. It's powered.
It does. It's pretty expensive too, if I remember right.
It's 340 euros that I spent
Which is a lot
today.
for something that's essentially just switching between 2 sets of inputs. But
Yeah.
I mean, and compared to a KVM that's like a regular USB-C KVM, which is probably like $50 or something.
Yeah, because in theory, it should have a Thunderbolt 4 controller inside. Now, both cables from the 2 computers will go into the KVM switch. Out of the KVM switch will go 1 cable that goes into the CalDigit dock. And of course, downstream into the CalDigit dock, I have my monitor, I have my camera, I have my audio interface, and I have Ethernet. So, in theory, I should be able to press one button, that is the KVM button, and switch between the iPad Pro or the Mac Studio, and along with that, move my monitor signal, my Ethernet connection, my audio interface, and my camera.
Yeah.
In
I
theory.
mean, the big question is whether that handshake works. Once you hit that button, do those signals properly travel from one computer to the other one? And
Do they? Now,
yeah, I mean, they
obviously,
should.
like,
That's the idea.
When it comes, and I think if this works, there'll be, of course, a nice update to the MacStories setups page, which needs a bit of an update now with iPadOS 26 and everything. Now, in terms of actual input, I have been using for a while this much better and not really expensive ergonomic mouse. It's called let me show you. It's a vertical ergonomic mouse. So this is called on video.
Nice.
I'm showing this off on the video version of AppStories. This is called the Proto Arc EML ergonomic mouse.
Okay.
And I have been using, as we've established, the Newfie Air 75 keyboard.
Oh, how do you like it? I haven't asked you about this. I've been I had my eyes on those. How
I like
quiet
it.
is it? You like it?
Well, the microphone will not pick it up.
No.
It's not as loud as other mechanical keyboards. It's not a Magic Keyboard. It's not quiet. I don't know. Can you hear this? Probably not. Well, okay. So that's a good sign because it's not dramatically loud, but it's still a mechanical keyboard. Still, it's right at that threshold of I can live with this.
Okay.
So, and this keyboard can pair between multiple inputs, and same as the mouse. You can just switch between multiple inputs. So in theory, I should be able, if the KVM switch works, I should be able to have this keyboard and mouse and everything else, and I have my gaming PC, my Nintendo Switch, my iPad Pro, and the Mac Studio, everything at my desk. Will it work? I guess I don't know. Stay tuned.
I think the little backstory is in order here, Federico, because I did research this switch a lot, maybe 6 to 9 months ago.
Yes,
and I took a pass because I wasn't convinced that it would work. And for $350, I decided to take a pass at it. So I'm very eager to see how it works for you because you are now my guinea pig because I could not find anybody who had actually used it before. And as a result, I just kind of let it go and decided on a different setup. But I would like a very easy and quick way to switch between my MacBook Pro and my Mac Studio because right now I have to do what you said, which is unplug the Thunderbolt cable from the back of my Mac Studio to plug it into the MacBook Pro. And it's a problem because I have it under a little shelf that I use as a display stand. Yeah. And it's just not easy to get back there and unplug it and, then replug it and all that stuff. So I would like to have a switch myself.
Yeah, it's bad for your knees when you need to crowd,
I don't know about that. It's a hassle. I might unplug something else, bump something else. But still.
If all of this works, obviously, I'm going to have a lot of questions. Can I actually do my podcasts on an iPad Pro? How will the local capture work with Zoom and video and audio? Will it work with my audio interface without having to switch the very confusing settings of my audio interface? I heard that Jason Snell mentioned it only works with mono input or something like that. And then it's sort of like a passes that as a stereo signal. I don't know, some weird stuff like that happening.
I think what he said is that it's passing stereo signals into a mono file.
Right, the other way around. Okay.
Yeah, and separating each track into the way wave files can have, well, it's not a wave file, it's FLAC, but basically different tracks on different parts of the same single audio file, which
there's no gain control on iPadOS 26, but my audio interface has like hardware gain control. So in theory, that should not be a problem. Then I guess big picture, I think I'm going to have more questions about like, okay, this is all good and nice. Proper windowing, stage manager that actually works. I don't have limits, background tasks, local capture. But will it still change the equation in terms of like you got better windowing, but it's still no Mac OS? Like I still don't have a terminal. I still don't have Xcode. I still don't have desktop apps. So I think I'll probably settle, like I mentioned, on a hybrid approach. Like for some heavy duty stuff, I'm going to have the Mac Studio. When this Mac Studio loan is up, we'll see what happens. I guess I can just put my MacBook Pro in clamshell mode under my desk or something. Yeah, something like that. We'll see. But I do think that I know, because I'm doing it now, I will be using the iPad Pro more because it's got a better way to multitask and it's got that flexibility that I didn't have with Stage Manager for the past 2 years, really, 3 years almost. And so it's not good to be in a situation where everything sort of hinges on a KVM switch. But we'll see. I've done stranger things, for sure. No,
I hear you. And, I've been doing some playing around with iPadOS 26 also, probably more so than just about any other of the OSs yet. And taking my iPad Pro down to a coffee shop a couple of times this week. And the new windowing really does make a difference. I think I was doing things like working in Obsidian in my email at the same time, and then I would have like messages behind it because I was getting messages from people. And it's just an easier way to work. I do think that for you, a hybrid approach is going to make sense, especially since you've been working with a lot of AI apps. There's so many things that are web-based now that are just, I think, more powerful on the Mac that you're going to find that having the outlet of a Mac with the terminal, Xcode, various web apps, all that stuff will probably be to your advantage to have it available and not just go all or nothing. I mean, I've always been a proponent of kind of a hybrid approach anyway, even though I am more Mac focused than you are. I mean, I've always had the iPad as part of what I do. It's just not been the center of everything I do. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, for me, it's like the thing that's exciting is that, especially with the audio recording, it means I can go away for the weekend, I think. And if I had to do a recording while I was away, I can do it. And I happen to have a USB-C microphone that has gain control built into the microphone. And that's,
is that the one you sent me last night?
It is the one I sent you. And I understand why you don't want to use that because you got a very good microphone.
I've been thinking about it, as like, because it does allow for a really portable setup.
That is why I did it, because it's still, I mean, that one, there are other ones you can consider. And I think even by that company, I think it was a Shure mic that I sent you. I forget. But in any event, what's nice about it is that it does make for a more portable on-the-go setup. And so what I've liked to do, and I did this not this year, but the year before at WWDC when we weren't in the podcast studio the entire time, I brought that microphone because I could use it without bringing an audio interface and connect it directly into my Mac laptop. And now with the iPad having the recording capability, I think I'll get a lot more use out of that particular microphone because it's not as good as my one at home, but it's good enough for most things, especially once you clean up the audio in post-production.
I'll think about it. So this is the Shure MV7. Right.
Yeah, and they may have updated it since the one I bought.
Okay.
I just sent you a link to the one that I bought, so I would look and see if they updated it since then. There may be a slightly better version that came out, but I bought it about a year ago, and I haven't used it a ton. But I bought a little case for it. You can find some of those hard cases online, so that when I pack things up, it's like the little lunchbox size package that fits into a backpack, which is pretty good.
I want to leave you, before we move on to the post show, where I want to talk about Apple Intelligence, and these topics are slightly related, but I want to bring this idea to the show that's been sort of running in my brain. As like my brain is already sort of like thinking about September and sort of like the angle for my iOS and iPadOS 26 review. So here's the thought that I had. I did not begin 2025 thinking that by mid-year I would feel attracted to go all in on the Apple ecosystem as much as I am right now.
And how so though? How so?
Because I thought that my workflow would be better served by a combination of platforms, web services, and different AI providers. And that is still true to a large extent. But I feel like with this WWDC, the combination of a redesign, an iPadOS 26, and the Apple Intelligence integration in shortcuts, I have a feeling that is sort of the perfect storm for somebody like me who maybe over the past couple of years had gotten a little bored by the Apple ecosystem. I feel like it's the perfect combination of things to draw me and someone like me back in. I had this thought. So it all started with one specific regret that I had while coming to California. And that was, I am so bummed that I didn't bring my AirPods Max. Now you may think, what's this? What's this about? Now, I brought my Sony XM6, which I purchased like just out of curiosity. And as I was on the plane and I was switching between my MacBook, my phone, my iPad, my Nintendo Switch, but mostly like I didn't really play a lot on Nintendo Switch. I mostly just worked. I realized, oh man, like pairing this Bluetooth thing sucks. And especially because like you gotta enter, like the Sony headphones can only remember 2 devices at once with multi-point. But then if you wanna add in a third one, you gotta do the manual pairing and then you gotta manually connect to it. Whereas I was looking around the plane, I was looking at all these people with AirPods Max, and I thought, if only I had brought my AirPods Max, that wouldn't be a problem. And that is obviously an example of the ecosystem advantage. But then WWDC, all the announcements, and I'm looking at the redesign, and I'm looking at the integration between obviously the iPhone and the Apple Watch, and I'm looking at the consistency between platforms, and I'm looking at like all the things that you can now do in shortcuts with native apps that have shortcuts actions and Apple Intelligence inside shortcuts, and I'm thinking, all these things coming together are calling to me again in a way that 6 months ago I didn't think would be possible in June.
Yeah. Are they going to be cutting edge enough though? Because I know from your experiments already, you think that Apple is using like an older model of ChatGPT.
They are using an older model of ChatGPT. They're using GPT-4 Turbo. But I'm wondering, like, will we see more models in shortcuts by the end of the summer? Or can I use the Apple Intelligence models for tasks that don't really require reasoning or are not really that complex, and I can still fall back on third-party APIs for things like Claude or ChatGPT, reasoning, that sort of stuff?
So now what you're not saying is you're going to abandon your subscription to Claude or Gemini.
No, I'm not going to do that. But what I'm saying is that, and I think other people are in my shoes right now. Like I'm in the same situation where, like, I mean, let's face it, for the past couple of years, being all in on the Apple ecosystem was kind of, it was, It was
No,
kind of
yeah, I
boring.
hear you.
You know, it was kind of boring. It was beyond, you know, some customization. Nothing was really going on. But especially if you're the type of person who's really into automation, who's into combining actions in shortcuts, who appreciates good design and great performance, these are the sort of things that, and this is like, I think this is a theme that we've seen from some commentators after WWDC. This was the kind of WWDC that Apple is great at: design, new features, and new apps. And you know,
it's interesting too, though, but because some of the reactions I've seen from a more general tech press is, oh, this was a boring WWDC. They're still behind on AI, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of both. I mean, yes, they're still smart Siri hasn't shipped, and there's more that Apple could be doing with artificial intelligence. At the same time, though, I think you're absolutely right. I think this was like a meat and potatoes kind of WWDC, where there are a lot of really interesting new APIs for developers to use. There's a lot of interesting new features for users to try out. And I think it's not just the fresh coat of paint that it's been made out to be by some people with the liquid glass. I think there's a lot more depth there than meets the eye. I think too, one of the things that's interesting to me, having kind of stepped back and try to figure out where the AI stuff comes in with all the announcements, you know, despite all the talk in the Google trial that Gemini is on the cusp of coming to Apple platforms, it's not in Xcode. I think you can hack your way into getting it to work with Xcode, but it's not easy. So there's that, which I found interesting. I also find interesting that Xcode is the first place where Apple has created a chatbot. You know, people talk about how Apple doesn't have a chatbot. They absolutely do in Xcode. And I think it's the kind of chatbot that could work in other apps as well, having like a sidebar type of thing that is a supplement to creative work, whether it's like a sidebar in Pages to help you with spelling and grammar checking, or supplemental research, or maybe in Numbers to help you create formulas, the way that Google's doing with Sheets now on the web, all that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of like the next frontier we're going to see from Apple, is maybe a little more integration with some of the first-party apps.
Yeah. So that was a thought. I don't know. I'm feeling excited about what Apple is doing again, and I think it's obviously a combination of things. And I want to talk about Apple Intelligence and shortcuts some more in the post-show. Which, John, what is the post-show? Where can people get the post-show?
Well, the post-show is a very, very special part of AppStories called AppStories Plus. And you can get it a couple of different ways. You can either just subscribe to AppStories Plus by itself by going to appstories.plus, or you can become a Club MacStories Premier member, which not only gets you the bonus show in AppStories, and ad-free, of course, and early, you also get all the stuff we do for the club, which is newsletters, both weekly and monthly, as well as our Discord and a bunch of other goodies. So you can go to plus.club to learn more about the club. That is kind of your all-access pass, Club Premier. It's everything we do with the club, plus AppStories Plus. So that's where they go, Federico.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to stop, Tichy. You can find the two of us over at macstories.net. We have a lot of podcasts at MacStories, and I think it's time we start shouting these out a little bit more, Federico, because I did hear from a couple of people at WWDC who were surprised to hear that we have a whole family of podcasts. It's not just AppStories. It's just not just MacStories Online that you and I do together, but there's also Comfort Zone with Chris Lawley, Matt Birchler, and Neil Yan. There's also all the other ones that we do too. You know, we've got all kinds of things going on over there. We've got Magic Razor Light. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's all throughout the week. So check it out sometime. In the meantime, you can find us on social media. Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.